Welcome back everyone to the UFC Predictions channel. In this video we will take a look at all the predictions made by UFC channels on YouTube for UFC Fight Night in Saudi Arabia. Robert Whittaker versus Aliskerov. For this event, 34 channels made predictions for fights on this card. I'm still missing predictions from at least 6 channels, but if they make a prediction video, I will add their picks in the results video this Sunday. Thanks to everyone in the comments for suggesting new YouTube channels that make UFC predictions videos. I've added a bunch more channels to follow now, so thank you so much. Now let's get started with the picks for this Fight Night card. This week I've added something new, the Tapology community picks. This way we can see a bit more information on the fighters, like their rankings, weight class, nationality, age, height and reach. And we can also see who the Tapology community thinks is going to win and if it's by a KO, TKO, submission or by a decision. So, for the first fight of the night on the prelims, we have a bantamweight fight between Xiao versus Kyung-Ho Lee. 72% of the Tapology community predicts that Lee is going to win, and most think this fight will go to a decision. But in average odds, Long is the favorite over Lee with minus 115. But as you can see, it is very close with Lee having minus 105 average odds. So, what do the UFC YouTubers predict? They also think Long will win this fight. 18 out of 30 channels predict that he will win, or 60%. 12 out of 30 channels thinks that Lee will win, or 40%. So interesting to see that Long is a favorite by the YouTube channels and that Lee is the favorite by the Tapology community. We will find out who is right this Saturday. Next up is a light heavyweight match between Magomed Gadzhiyasulov versus Brendson Ribeiro. Magomed is a big favorite here and getting 85% of the picks by the Tapology community, versus 15% for the Brazilian Brendson Ribeiro. Most people think that this fight will end in a KO or TKO. In average odds, Magomed is a big favorite as well, with minus 339 versus Brendson plus 261. But by picks from YouTubers, Magomed is a huge favorite. 30 out of 41 or 97% thinks that he will win this fight. The only channel that thinks Brendson will win is Money Moicano, but he's also from Brazil, so maybe he's a bit biased. Then we have another bantamweight fight. Kyung-Ho Kang versus Muin Gafurov. The South Korean Gafurov gets 36% of the picks and Kang gets 64% of the picks from the Tapology community, making Kang the favorite. Do the odds makers agree? They do not. In average odds, Muin Gafurov is the favorite with minus 163 odds, and Kang is the underdog with plus 136 odds. So, what do the YouTubers predict? The same as the odds makers or as the Tapology community? They predict, just as the odds makers, that Gafurov will win this fight. 19 out of 29 channels pick him to win, or 66%. Kang gets 10 out of 29 picks, or 34%. So again, the UFC YouTube channel disagrees with the Tapology community. We will have to wait until Saturday to find out who is right for this match. Next fight on the prelims is a welterweight fight between Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Nicolas Dalby. The Russian fighter Rinat is a big favorite, getting 78% of the picks versus 22% for the Danish Nicolas Dalby. Most people think this fight will go to a decision. In average odds, Rinat is also a big favorite, getting minus 364 versus the underdog Dalby, who is getting plus 284 in average odds. And the YouTubers also think that Rinat will win. With 27 out of 32 picks, or 84% of the total picks, he's a huge favorite. Only 5 out of 32 channels predict that Dalby will win this fight. The fifth fight on the prelims is a featherweight fight between Naimov versus Felipe Lima. Naimov is a huge favorite, getting 84% of the picks from the Tapology community picks. And Felipe Lima only getting 16% of the picks. Most people think this fight will go to a decision. However, in average odds, Felipe Lima is a slight favorite versus Naimov. Lima has minus 115 average odds and Naimov has minus 105. So very close. Only 11 channels made a pick for this fight, but that's because Felipe Lima is replacing Melsik Baghdasaryan just under a week before the fight. So many channels already made their picks on that previous fight, so I had to ignore those picks. That's why we only have 11 picks for this fight. Most UFC channels also think that Naimov is going to win this fight. He's getting 8 out of 11 picks for 73% of the total picks. Lima gets 3 out of 11 picks for 27%. So Naimov is a big favorite, both by UFC YouTube channels and by the Tapology community. But he is a very small underdog in average odds. So I think that Naimov might be a good betting opportunity for this fight. Then the final fight of the prelims is a lightweight fight between Nasrat Haqparast versus Jared Gordon. Nasrat from Afghanistan is a very big favorite, getting 84% of the picks from the Tapology community. And the American, Jared Gordon, is only getting 16% of the picks. Here again, most people think this fight will go to a decision. In odds, Nasrat is a big favorite as well, with minus 245 versus Jared, who has plus 195. But 97% of the UFC YouTube channels think that Nasrat is going to win, getting 30 out of 41 picks. Only Moni Moicano is picking Jared Gordon to win. And that is the second fight on this card where Moni Moicano is the only one to pick a fighter to win. Will he be right? We will see this Saturday. Before we go to the main card, I would like to quickly ask you if you could like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy my content and find it informative. I would really appreciate it, and it helps a lot to motivate me to continue making these videos and improving them. Thank you so much. Now on to the main card, which starts with a light heavyweight fight between Johnny Walker versus Volkan Oezdemir. The Brazilian, Johnny Walker, is the favorite in the Tapology community, getting 69% of the picks, and Volkan gets 31% of the picks. Most people think this fight will end in a KO or TKO. In average odds, it's basically as even as it can get, with minus 111 for Walker and minus 110 for Volkan. But in picks, by the UFC channels, it is also almost even. Johnny is the slight favorite, getting 17 out of 33 picks, or 52% of the picks. And Volkan is getting 16 out of 33 picks, or 48%. So in odds and picks by the UFC channels, this is the closest fight on the card, and it is basically a coin flip. Next fight on the main card is a middleweight fight between Shara Magomedov versus Antonio Trocoli. Another very late replacement fight. Antonio accepted this fight 3 days before the fight. He was supposed to fight last week against Aliskerov, who is now fighting against Robert Whittaker on the main event for this fight card. Antonio is replacing Jolton Lutebak, who had to withdraw from this fight because the doping commission found a substance in his urine. Magomedov is a huge favorite, getting 96% of the picks versus Antonio's 4%, making Magomedov the biggest favorite in Tapology community picks for this card. Most think that he will win by KO or TKO. And in average odds, he's also the biggest favorite on this card, getting minus 654, and Antonio with plus 457 odds is the biggest underdog. Because this fight was made 3 days before the fight and almost every UFC channel had already made their prediction video, only one channel, The Weasel, has been able to make a prediction for this fight. And ChatGPT also agrees with The Weasel on this one. I bet that if all the UFC YouTube channels made a prediction on this fight, that Money Moicano would have been the only one who had chosen Antonio to win, as he is also a Brazilian. Up next is a welterweight fight between Kelvin Gastelum and Daniel Rodriguez. Gastelum is a big favorite, getting 80% of the picks, and Rodriguez only getting 20% of the picks on Tapology. Most will think this fight will go to a decision. In odds, Gastelum is also the favorite with minus 237 average odds, and Rodriguez has plus 190. And the UFC YouTubers also think that Gastelum is the favorite to win this fight. He's getting 26 out of 33 picks, or 79% of the total picks. And Rodriguez is getting 7 out of 33 picks for 21%. We go to the co-main event of the evening, a heavyweight fight between two Russians, Sergei Pavlovich versus Alexander Volkov. 84% predict that Sergei will win this fight, and most think it will be by KO or TKO. 16% pick Alexander to win. Sergei has minus 240 in average odds, making him the favorite. Volkov is the underdog with plus 192 average odds. 23 out of 34, or 68% of the UFC YouTube channels pick Sergei to win, and 11 out of 34, or 32%, pick Alexander to win. Then, for the main event of the evening, we have a middleweight fight between Robert Whittaker versus Ikram Aliskerov. Ikram is replacing Khamzat Chimaev, who got food poisoning. The Tapology community thinks that Robert Whittaker will win this fight, and that he will win by a decision. He is getting 73% of the picks, and his opponent Ikram Aliskerov gets 27% of the picks. In average odds, Robert is also the favorite with minus 156, and Ikram is the underdog with plus 128 average odds. From the 33 UFC YouTube channels, 22 predict that Robert Whittaker will win this fight, or 67%. 33% of the channels predict that Ikram will win this fight, getting 11 out of 33 total picks. So, that was it for this overview. Hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. Don't forget to come back this Sunday, where we will look at the results. We go over which channels had the most and least correct picks, which channels won or lost the most money with their picks, and which channels had the highest and lowest return of investment. So, thank you for watching, and see you again this Sunday.